takes a little while. Pull it up on my phone, so are we ready?
Ready to go.
Okay. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Edina, and this is Kathleen. Okay. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Edina, and this is Kathleen. I can hear the echo. All good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting a bit better at our lives. I think we've been getting a bit more organised. We're going to start a series today about Australian citizenship, and we're going to break it down in small chunk sizes. So normally we'll do a live and we'll cram as much information in as possible. But so there's lots of videos there that people can go and watch if they want to watch crammed versions of things. They're a bit disjointed though, because we chop and change subjects throughout. So this week we thought we'll start with a focus of just talking about Australian citizenship. It's probably what the most common question we get asked is, how do I get Aussie citizenship? And there's not a simple answer, it's not a short answer. So we're going to break it down in small chunk sizes. Today is part one, so we're going to do a whole series on Australian citizenship. And we'll go through the first part today. And then we've also got a guest that's going to join us in about half an hour. And we're looking forward to that. So nice to have some of our, past clients and guests join us and share their experiences. So Kathleen and I will be going through this stage. We'll try and keep an eye out for questions. And we're mindful that most people will probably watch this afterwards. So it's live for now, and we share our videos on our YouTube channel, and so you'll be able to go back there and rewatch them, and we'll also leave them in our Facebook pages as well. And we have got two Facebook pages. One's got Moringa Migration just on its own, it's a private group, and the other one is Moringa Migration with PTY Limited at the end. The group can only have up to 5,000, and we often fill up, and then I go through and do a cull of people that maybe are not using it or what have you, or sometimes we have fake profiles in there, so we kick all those ones out so that we can keep making room for those that just want to see stuff more in private. But there is the open page too, which is where these videos are live streamed to. All right, anything to add to that, Kathleen?
Just that they can also access our videos and things from our website and our social media links there. So if you're trying to find our videos, just go to the website as well.
Yeah. So let's get started on this Australian citizenship part one. Do you want to introduce this, Kathleen? Because we discussed about what would we talk about, and this kind of came up. Do you want to explain what we first started talking about yesterday about how someone had filled out a...
Yeah, so I did post online a message about how a friend of mine had, I suppose, had been scammed by a fake immigration website. Sometimes when you're typing in Australian citizenship, you'll get a range of different links, and some of those links often will be about Australian citizenship and various ways you can apply for Australian citizenship. And this particular friend had clicked on one of those links and had put in their details, had paid about $500 to, in their mind, lodge a citizenship application. But it turned out it wasn't actually a legitimate website, and it wasn't the department. It wasn't linked to the Department of Home Affairs. We should probably put it out there, Edina, that the Department of Home Affairs doesn't have any, should we say, affiliates or other websites that you need to use before you can actually apply to them, apply for their citizenship. So if you're doing an application for citizenship and you're applying yourself, you should be using the Department of Home Affairs website directly. So this particular friend, after 12 months, having not heard anything from the department, thought, oh, I'll just give the department a call and see how my application's going, only to find out that there was no application in their name, and subsequently, of course, finding out it was a fake website. So hence why we decided to talk about Australian citizenship this morning, specifically for New Zealand citizens migrating to Australia, because we don't want people to waste money on various applications and websites when, and just be giving over their personal information to these websites. Because once you hand over that information, you don't know what they will do with it. You don't know who it's going to be passed on to. So we hope that this information session will be useful and helpful to those who might be wanting to apply, those who might be wanting to lodge their own applications as well. So that's a little bit how we kind of started on this topic, isn't it, Edna?
Yeah, for sure. And I have seen it over the years where people have come to me and they've said, I've lodged this application, I paid X amount of dollars, and I haven't heard anything. I can't seem to get any information, and we've discovered that they've been sucked in by filling out their information on a fake, someone who's imitating to be doing Australian immigration citizenship applications. So yeah, definitely. I think people are very vulnerable when they don't know how the system works. So that's what we want to do with our lives, is bring the education, make it more widespread and easily accessible. So let's get started. So our topic today is Australian citizenship. Can you see that okay, Kathleen?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really clear.
She's checking so that I know she can see it, then everyone else can see it. All right. So just as we introduce this topic, remember we specialise in New Zealand citizens or New Zealand passport holders, and the link into Australian citizenship. It may be useful for people of other nationalities, but this is where we kind of specialise. We as far as I'm aware, we're the only ones that specialise in this particular area in Australia. So it's really important that we have something for us to be able to turn to. Yeah, let's see if I can skip. Okay, so when we talk about New Zealand citizens, we have done a series of videos beforehand, and we're not going to go into all the details because it is very layered, all of this information about New Zealand citizens and how migration works in Australia. Today, we're going to talk about citizenship only, so we're going to keep it really narrow. If you are needing to know more information, background information, I would recommend going back and watching our lives from the last 2 to 3 weeks or even 4 weeks. We go into great detail about explaining how our immigration status works. But this is really for people who might have a better idea of that. They want to see those videos because you'll see some of the examples that we use. It's all linked in back there. So if you find yourself getting a little bit lost with what we talked about today, it'll be better to go back and watch some of those previous videos and then come back and watch this one again at another time. Okay, so when we talk about New Zealand citizens, and I'm going to turn this way because my big screen's on my other screen here with the PowerPoint. We're talking about New Zealand passport holders, and this is just a little disclaimer we read out every week. It's the information we're going to provide today is not meant to substitute advice. It is general information, and it's for educational purposes only. If you are looking at getting anything done with regards to citizenship or visas, we recommend that you get formal advice if you want proper advice. This is just general information, and a lot of what we talk about is going to be on the Department of Home Affairs website as well. But this is to help people unpack it a bit better, and and just the usual. This is our intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. And also the information we provide today is relevant today. Immigration legislation changes regularly, so it could change tomorrow. We don't know. We're not necessarily privy to what changes are going to be around the corner. And with the election coming up on this Saturday, 21st Oh yeah, tomorrow is election, so who knows if there's a new government that comes in, there might be uh, more changes on the horizon. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, so Kathleen, we're going to take turns.
Yes. So today we will be discussing the different types of Australian citizenship applications that are available. So everyone out there will have a different circumstance, and so it's good to kind of cover this off, because sometimes it's a little bit the actual, when you're actually going into the system itself, it's kind of hard to kind of work out what type of application is applicable to you. So we're going to go through that today, and hopefully that will be something that will be useful to you. If you're a permanent resident or an eligible New Zealand citizen, hopefully this will give you a good idea of the type of application that you need to apply for in the near future.
Okay. So we've broken this down into 4 main categories, and the first 3 are easily explained. The 4th one is a little bit tricky, and we've labelled the 4th one ourselves. So this is not kind of necessarily one you'll find on the department website. We've labelled this for a specific reason, and I'll explain how and why. So we're going to be talking about 4 categories. One is birth, meaning if a child is born in Australia, what does Australian citizenship look like for that child? Because I guess many people realise now that just because you're born in Australia does not mean that you are an Australian citizen. So it's important that we talk about that. We talk about citizenship by descent, what that means, and who can apply for citizenship by that pathway. We talk about citizenship by conferral, and what does conferral mean? It's not a common word that we would hear or use in everyday language. So what does conferral mean? And the last one that we've made up the same title is operation of law. What does that mean? Because there's some people that can get citizenship automatically through what's called, it's an operation of law function. Can't hear you.
Sorry. So the first category we're going to cover today is citizenship at birth. So when a child is born to either an Australian citizen or a permanent resident or an eligible New Zealand citizen, the child is a citizen at birth. Or born, if they're born before the 20th of August 1986 or after these key dates, after the 31st of August 1994 or before February 2001. So we have here, I don't know, I was thinking this is really also for those who are born onshore, isn't it? This is covering those who are born in Australia,
Yes.
Not particularly those who are born overseas.
No, not at all. This is only for people who are born in Australia. That's right. Yes. So citizenship at birth means born in Australia, and under these certain types of conditions, that child is recognised as an Australian citizen at birth. Yesterday, somebody sent through a question and said, I know someone in our family who was born in Australia in 1984, and as a baby they were taken back to New Zealand and have lived there their whole life. And they asked, are they, like, what status do they hold? And if you look at this list, what you would do is ask one, it can be any of these questions. So I didn't ask, but was the child's parent or parents an Australian citizen at the time of the birth? We don't know. I didn't ask. Were they a permanent resident? Didn't know, didn't ask. Were they an eligible New Zealand citizen? Actually, eligible New Zealand citizens didn't exist at that time. We had what was called exempt non-citizens. Or were they born before the 20th of August 1986? Or if they were born to New Zealand citizen parents, were they born between the 31st of August 94 and the 26th of February 2001. So when people are wanting to work out who's a citizen at birth, if they're born in Australia, they need to go through this list one by one. And the question that this person asked me was, they told me that the person was born in 1984. So in my mind, I was able to go straight to the point that says, were they born before the 20th of August? I don't need to worry about whether a parent was a citizen or a permanent resident or an exempt non-citizen. It doesn't matter what status the parent was. This is the period of time in history where children who were born in Australia were automatically Australian citizens, regardless of what the status of the parents were. But that changed from the 20th of August 1986, and that's why we don't have everyone who's born in Australia since that date are not necessarily citizens. And when we talk about New Zealand citizens, the key dates are between 94 and 2001. So the answer to this person's question was that person who was born in 1984, 100% is an Australian citizen. Whether they've got an Aussie passport or not doesn't matter. By law, they are an Australian citizen. All they need to show is their Australian birth certificate. And I would recommend they apply for an Australian citizenship certificate, check for their absolute proof, and if they want, they can get an Aussie passport as well. And then they wanted to know what they're entitled to on top of that. That varies. That's something that's not our area of expertise. We can kind of give opinions about that, but that's more, if you want to know about entitlements, you've got to go to those other different government departments, such as Centrelink or Services Australia nowadays, and what have you. And just a little note for those people who haven't seen our previous videos, you'll notice that there's these driver's licenses down the bottom screen. And for the purposes of this, we've just used the Queensland driver's license. Now, I use the analogy of a learner's license, P-platers and full license. I use it with immigration. So if you're wondering why there's driver's licenses down there, it links to the analogy that I use to teach New Zealand citizens how immigration works for us and how to recognise our status. So these driver's licenses show the LNP plater, which is the eligible New Zealand citizen, also known as a protected SCV holder, or a P plater, which is a permanent visa holder, not a permanent resident, someone who holds a permanent visa and or might be considered a permanent resident under law. You have to know how the law works to be certain of that. And if you've got a full license, that's equivalent to Australian citizenship. So children born in Australia to any of these parents who might hold these types of immigration licenses or immigration statuses, that's why those pictures are there as little cues. But like I said, if you still don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back through our past videos when I talk about the driver's license and how it works.
So the next category, the next category is citizenship by descent. So this is where a child is born overseas to a parent who was an Australian citizen at the time of their birth. So the previous one that we talked about, citizenship by birth, that's where a child was born in Australia. But this is the way to obtain citizenship if a child is born overseas to a parent who was an Australian citizen at the time of their birth. So you're born outside of Australia. So this particular, you've got to ensure that when you're making a claim that, through descent, that your parent, one of your parents was at that time of your birth, was an Australian citizen. So, things like showing a citizenship certificate or your parents' Australian passport would be good evidence for claiming citizenship by descent.
Yeah, I mean, a birth certificate's better, but citizenship certificate and birth certificate, because it has a date. Yes. It has a date on it. The passport won't necessarily have the date of when that parent became an Australian citizen. So that's why we need either a birth certificate or an Australian citizenship certificate. Okay, so the next one is citizenship by conferral. Now, this word trips a lot of people up. Probably a more common term that people would recognise is naturalisation. Conferral means by, in the context of citizenship, it means by application. It means it's been applied for by someone who's migrated to Australia and has gone through the process of being recognised as a permanent resident beforehand. So the groups of people that are allowed to apply for citizenship are only these two groups, as no one else can apply for them. So it's either you are a permanent resident, and that does not mean the same as living permanently in Australia. Under migration law, it doesn't mean the same thing, and it is confusing language. So if you are an Australian permanent resident, how do you know if you're an Australian permanent resident? You will normally hold a permanent visa. How do you know if you hold a permanent visa? You would have normally applied for that, or if you came as a child, your parents would have applied for a permanent visa in order to be recognised as a permanent resident. Or there is the group called the eligible New Zealand citizens, also known as the protected SCV holders. Again, this is something that you have to get your head around, the meaning of what an eligible New Zealand citizen is. We've got that all broken down on our website. Again, it's explained in more depth in our previous videos. Those are the only two groups of people that are entitled to apply for Australian citizenship by conferral. That's the only way that they can get citizenship, is they have to apply through that pathway.
And lastly, we're covering citizenship by operation of law. And we've covered this also in our previous lives, but it is a common question that we receive on a weekly basis about a child who is born in Australia and who lives here up until their 10th birthday. They are by operation of law, which is why we've titled this particular category of people, by operation of law, on their 10th birthday, they will become an Australian citizen regardless of their parents' status. So it doesn't matter, say, for example, if someone with a passport, if the parents hold a United States passport, it doesn't matter that if they have a child here in Australia and that child remains here up until their 10th birthday, that child will have Australian citizenship on their 10th birthday by operation of law. So they don't have to apply for citizenship. It's more that they have to apply for evidence of that citizenship. And we've got a lot of information on our website as well about this. But the key there, as the slide shows, is that they must have been ordinarily resident in Australia from birth to their 10th birthday. So if the parents decide to take the child, they decide, oh, we're going to go and live in Tonga, for example, for a couple of years, that will cause some issues because they have not been ordinarily resident in Australia from their birth to their 10th birthday. So those of you, I guess, who are have children who are in this situation, you might just want to reconsider any plans that you might have in terms of taking them offshore. Because this might, impact their chances of obtaining Australian citizenship. So just be mindful of that issue. They need to be ordinarily resident in Australia from their birth. Did you have anything further to add, Edna?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Emphasising that they must have lived here. So they have to do two things. They're born here and they have resided for the first 10 years of their life. There are sometimes instances where if a child hasn't lived here for the whole of the first 10 years, there might still be instances where they can be granted Australian citizenship by operation of law. Those are more complex cases. You normally have to show that you've been ordinarily resident in Australia but were outside of Australia temporarily. People worry that they're not allowed to go overseas on holidays or to visit family overseas. You are allowed to do that. It's when it comes to leaving Australia to live somewhere else And there is no prescribed time frame in the law of how long are you allowed out for. But generally speaking, 6 months probably would be a bit of a rule I would follow as a guesstimated timeline. If you do go out for a prolonged period of time, such as 6 months, though, I would still be very, very mindful to keep strong ties back in Australia. So you've still got your house or renting your property or things like that. You still have to show that you are actually living in Australia. Or you might go for an overseas trip for 6 months or 12 months, and all you're doing is traveling. You're not actually living anywhere overseas. You need to provide evidence that your overseas travel was not to live anywhere, not to reside anywhere. That's where these can be, undone. And for people, I've come across a lot of New Zealanders that have decided to go home to New Zealand or wherever to have their babies. They've been living here for a long time. They go home to have their babies so they can get a New Zealand citizenship, New Zealand birth certificate, and then bring them back as newborn babies to Australia. Those children are blocked. They can't access citizenship by operation of law. And if their parent was an eligible New Zealand citizen or protected SCV holder, their child does not receive any advantage because of their parent status. That child needs to be born in Australia. Saying that, I always encourage and would advise, have your babies in Australia. Our children can still have dual citizenship. New Zealand automatically grants our children citizenship from birth. You don't even have to apply, but when you apply, you get evidence of it. Australia's a bit different. Australia doesn't do that. That's why you have to go through a whole application of citizenship by descent, and then your child is recognised as an Australian citizen. So yeah, this is just a brief overview of those 4 areas. And next week, we're going to put together the part 2. So part 2, we'll be talking about the citizenship application process for each of those types of citizenship applications. There is a process, and there's a number of other things that we'll have to cover in the coming weeks, just to do with Australian citizenship alone. There's a lot to it.
I don't know, we had a question last week from Lena, and her question was, my daughter was born here and she's turning 10 in October. When should I apply for her citizenship, was her question. We didn't address it last week, but I think it's a great question for this week's topic.
Yeah, cool. So her child's turning 10 in October. As soon as the child turns 10, their 10th birthday, you can apply for what's called evidence of citizenship. And that's for children who are being granted Australian citizenship by operation of law. So from the 10th birthday of the child onwards, you can apply. That's how you do it. And we'll talk next week about the processes. So what does the application process look like? We do applications for people if they want us to. They can engage our services and we can provide that service for sure. But we're going to be actually showing you how to do some of the basics of, where to go. We're going to be pointing people in the right direction of citizenship. And we want to overcome that problem of scamming websites that are taking people's money and personal information fraudulently. So we want to make sure, that's why we want to do this, as we understand that not everyone's going to come to us to use our services. That's fine, but we just don't want to see people get roped in, and it's the money is bad enough, but it's actually the personal details that's more of a worry. Oops. Okay, so we're going to be starting. That was perfect time. We did so well. We've gone over time so many times. And we have got a guest joining us this morning. Her name is Ruth, and she's going to join us. Okay, so I'll just message her.
Just going back to Lena's question, I think the key is you've got to wait for them to turn 10. Can't actually do anything before they turn 10.
Yeah. Now I heard a beep. That means that. Oh,
Ruth,
yeah.
you might just want to turn the slides off too, and that way Ruth can.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now I'm just going to
Good
get
morning,
this.
Ruth.
Morning.
Ruth, this is Kathleen. Kathleen, this is Ruth.
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. I'm so excited to hear about your story.
Oh, I hope I can tell it well.
And Ruth, Kathleen's based in Prospect in New South Wales too. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so
Lovely.
Ruth comes
Oh, it's
from.
great that you've got someone here in Sydney.
Yes, yes, at long last. So thank you for being brave and joining us. We're so excited to have you. We often try and share a little bit about people's cases, but isn't it better just hearing it from people themselves?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for being willing and able and ready to join us. And we did send you out some kind of like pre-questions so you could have a little bit of an idea of what we might talk about today, but feel free to share anything outside of that too.
Okay.
We've got about 20 minutes to half an hour, so if you can fill up that time, awesome. If you don't want to, that's all good too. And we do share our videos on YouTube, so once we've finished, we'll upload to YouTube, so it'll be there for people to watch in the future.
Oh, nice. I hope I say everything politically correct.
Well, it's voting time tomorrow. You're not quite there yet because of your status, but Australian citizens from tomorrow will be able to vote. So for all of our Kiwi passport holders that have got dual citizenship, it's a really important step to be able to be part of the democracy and have a say, and hopefully help carve better pathways for us in the future, for our future. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if the Greens get in with their promise. So
yes, exactly. All right, so Kathleen does it so much better than I do. I discovered last week. She'll interview you, and it's probably better coming from you, Kathleen.
Well, thank you again, Ruth, for joining us. And, we thought we'd just start by asking you a little bit about your background. If you can just share perhaps about your family and when you actually came to Australia.
Sure. Well, I was born and bred in Auckland, but mum's from Ngāti Whātua and dad's from Tainui. We're a large family of 6 children, and I have many nieces and nephews. No children of my own yet, though. And I moved here to Sydney in 2008, originally to basically temp and save some money to travel. However, after 3 months, I got offered a permanent role at my current employment and have been here ever since. Within 6 months of being here, my twin brother rang me and said, "Do you want to buy a house?" And I said, "I don't have any money." And he said, "Neither do I, but let's give it a go." So we did, and we bought a 2-bedroom unit together, and then 5 years after that, we managed to buy an investment property. So I pretty much figured very early on into my relocation here that I was here to stay. And I was just so impressed with the opportunities that Australia gave me to be able to buy 2 properties within a short amount of time was amazing to me, and I knew that I wouldn't have been able to do that back home, and especially alone. So for those reasons, I've always appreciated living in Australia. Mm-hmm. It also helped me support my parents and live a comfortable life at the same time. So permanent residency was always something I was considering, and at that time that pathway wasn't easily available to us, if at all. So when those rules changed, it became a lot more possible.
So you said permanent residency. So why were you thinking about permanent residency? What was like that kind of thinking around that? Because we can live here, we can work here, why permanent residency?
So I came over here with the notion that I needed to make sure I had funds to support me to find a job, to set myself up here. And so I did that. I also then realised none of the benefits of an Australian citizen was available to me. So I always made sure I had income protection insurance, and not to say that even as a citizen you shouldn't have that, but it was certainly a big motivator, the fact that I couldn't tap into government resources. And I just never wanted to feel like I didn't have any backup as far as living here and being able to support myself here. So permanent residency, I knew was going to give me that sort of safety net. But at the same time, because we can live here permanently regardless, there wasn't a big motivation to get it going.
Yes.
Until I met someone.
Right. Who was this special someone?
I went to Samoa on holiday back in 2019, and we didn't expect to meet each other. And from the first night, we talked and realized that we had similar values, if not the same values and morals, and we saw it that person was for me. And we both felt it that instant and instantly. So that was the changing point in my life, basically.
Right. So you're here on a 444. You've now met somebody. You want to bring him here. Is that kind of like how it all started? And how did you connect up with Edina, or how did you find out about Moorunga migration in order to help you with your immigration?
So through us talking to each other, we realised that coming to Australia was an opportunity that would benefit both of us. We wanted to, we could see a future together immediately, and we knew that living in Australia was going to provide the financial support and backing that we wanted for our lives. But most importantly, we were looking to retirement, and that was in Samoa, building a house. And I love my creature comforts, so I knew that was going to cost a lot of money, and I wasn't going to be able to save that money working in Samoa. So we both were on the same page about everything. And so we initially tried to apply for a visitor visa, and we had help from a family member on his side who had helped a lot of people get visitor visas to New Zealand. So we thought maybe it'll be the same. And then we found out it was not that easy. And so we were denied very, very quickly, mainly because we couldn't prove that he would want to return to Samoa. I mean, you come to Australia, look at all that you have available to you. Why would you return? So that was really heart-wrenching. And to be honest, even though it didn't cost a lot of money, I didn't want to have to try again. Exactly. The fact that we wanted to be together forever meant that we had to look for a more permanent solution anyway. So that's when I was on Facebook and I came across, I believe it was a Kiwis in Sydney page, and someone had asked for recommendations on a migration agent or how did they apply for permanent residency, and Moorunga Migration was recommended as a company to go to for that kind of assistance. So I looked up, checked out the website and everything, and I'm a person who wants to get it right first time, and I didn't want to fail again. So I was very keen to speak to Edina and get her advice on how we approach this for our situation.
So at this time, hubby is still overseas, is that right?
Correct. The whole entire
time. Had you gotten married at some point?
No, so I came back, I was there for about a month towards at Christmas time 2019, returned to Australia, and then we had already planned another trip, which was that I would go over at Easter time 2020, and we were definitely going to get married. I know that seems it probably sounds like some holiday romance and how could this last forever, but we were very certain. There were so many reasons that this was right for us, and that decision was also right for us. Unfortunately, though, COVID came along 2 weeks prior, the borders closed globally, and yeah, I was devastated. We were both devastated. We thought it was only going to be a couple of weeks. I think everyone thought it was just going to be a couple of weeks, and then it turned out to be a bit longer. So then I decided permanent residency was going to have to be our next step, and I was committed to engaging Morning on Migration to make that happen.
So what was Edna's advice to you when she went through the consultation with you?
Well, I couldn't see how I could get permanent residency here with a partner overseas easily. So my thought was I probably need to move back to New Zealand. That's probably going to be the best place for me to get him permanent residency there or citizenship, and then move back to Australia. And once I told Edna about our story and our situation, she flipped that on me. She within minutes she knew what she could do for us. And most importantly, the biggest thing she said to me is, your life is here in Australia. You've set yourself up here. You don't need to uproot yourself and return to New Zealand, which is going to cost a lot of money regardless of how you see it. Moving back home means starting all over again. And so that was the biggest revelation and surprise for me, that I could actually stay here where I've got a great job, great living situation. There is nothing wrong with me being here. I like it here. I enjoy being here. So I was just excited. Really
so there are many people who kind of they don't really know where to start, what to do. What can you say to people who like you went through the consultation process? What can you say to people about the importance of going through that consultation? Because you said that Edna was able to, pinpoint the issue within minutes. That was really key, wasn't it? Having that consultation.
Absolutely, it was definitely key. I mean, even though it's only a 15-minute consultation or so, obviously my situation is not dissimilar to other people, and she has done this time and time again, so she knows immediately what she can do for you. She's got so much experience in the visa process that she could just I could tell the cogs in her brain were working immediately, and she just knew straight away, I know what I can do for you. And even though my situation was slightly complicated, I know that she's dealt with much more bigger complications or complicated situations. So the fact that she's obviously well versed in all of this and very knowledgeable and skilled. So I trusted in that time, that in that conversation, that she knew exactly what she was saying and could deliver.
And I guess that is really the key about engaging a professional. You can spend all this time looking at Facebook pages, listening to people giving advice and stuff like that. But with engaging a professional, they can narrow those pathways and those options for you quickly, so that you know for certain what is the way to go about getting your permanent residence and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at whether it's New Zealand immigration or Australian websites, I've asked them questions, and all they do is, even on a chat, is say, refer back to the page where it says blah, blah. I'm like, I don't understand what that means. And I'm not a dumb person.
I know, right? You think it's like,
it just makes your head spin. And when I finally engaged her and said, okay, she said, you're going to need to fill out this form 80 and this other form. And I had no idea that I would have had to do that. I didn't feel like the website gave you that basic 101 step-by-step instruction. And I would have looked at those forms and go, why would I need to do that? I probably don't need to, but I knew that she knew it had to be done. And if she said it was, then I was absolutely going to do it. I just didn't know anything. How many times do you apply for a visa? Never. And yes. I needed the right advice. And I've always been a person who's sought professional advice. And I just felt that she was the right person to give that to me.
And Ruth, you talked about complications in your case. Can you kind of expand on that and just how Edina was able to help you through those complications?
So I guess the two key complications were that one, I lived in Samoa and I'm in Australia, so we're long distance. We hadn't been together for quite 12 months at that point. And to be considered de facto, you had to be in a relationship for 12 months. And actually, I was surprised to hear that it didn't matter that we were long distance, as long as we could prove that we had been together for 12 months. So we lodged soon after hitting that 12-month mark. So it was a very fresh relationship in a sense. And so we had to prove that our relationship was genuine. And I understood that. I can understand that. But how do you do that when we've just entered this global pandemic? I cannot travel to see him. I need to show evidence that we're truly together and that our families know about each of us, and that we share finances and friends and what we do when it comes to social gatherings. How do we, split those responsibilities? We don't have children, so that wasn't a factor. But, all of those normal things that you would do when you're together in person were not possible for us. Like it was, I was like, how do we prove this? But through Irana, I realized that I came to understand that showing text messages and video, I would take photos of our video calls and document all of that, things on our Facebook page and comments from our families, and then preparing stat decks, getting them to prepare stat decks, understanding that those are quite, those are legal documents, so you have to say true and correct things wouldn't go well to support our applications. So I wouldn't have known that that's what we could do outside of being together in person. So those were the tips and tricks that I learned through Edina.
So, you had to go through your own process first, didn't you? You had to get your 189 skilled independent visa, New Zealand stream. Then you had to then apply for your partner. So that was a different process as well.
No, we included one.
Well, he was included in the 189.
Yeah. Actually, can I just jump in? There was one other complexity that popped up that I actually didn't realise at the time. And so sometimes when we're going through applications, it's so convoluted that even as experienced migration agents, we're still learning things, at times, because things in the law can be quite hidden and they don't say what they mean and so forth.
Ambiguous.
Yeah. So you've been together for just over 12 months, which is super important. That's a de facto requirement. But something I discovered is that you need to have shown that you had somehow lived together in that time too. If you were just de facto, and we couldn't show that because the pandemic stepped in, because the plan initially was you were going to go to Samoa, you guys were going to get married, and then that would easily, because once they're married, that actually helps their case, tenfold. But what we needed to do to overcome the fact that they had not been able to spend enough time together to show that they are living together in in parts when they're able to be in each other's countries whilst the visa's being processed. The only way we could overcome that was that Ruth and Moana had to apply for what's called a registered relationship. They had to register their relationship with births, deaths and marriages in Sydney. And I just want to make a point here for anyone that might be listening to this kōrero or this story, is not all of Australia allows registered relationships. In fact, WA doesn't. WA is like a huge portion of Australia. So if you're in the states of South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, for example, even Queensland, I know for sure that they allow registered relationships. So when people are trying to overcome de facto, because we would have overcome that if you'd been able to get married, but you couldn't get together because of the border closures. So that was the big spanner in the works, and I was panicking because we were trying to, and then it wasn't so easy to register your relationship, remember, because births, deaths and marriages, all of those government departments had literally shut down because there was all of these restrictions. So it wasn't like Ruth could just walk into the office and get it sorted out, and then when we had other complications down the track when the person who signed it put the incorrect date, and so poor Ruth, it just went on and on and on, didn't it, Ruth?
It really did. And that was amazing that you managed to find that out for us, was that this could be an option to help support our application. And yes, I did have the JP at Services New South Wales dated my stat dec incorrectly, and so it was initially challenged. And I happened to be in New Zealand at the time when that response came through in Taupo. And I went to a JP in New Zealand. They said, no, that's not good enough. We need someone from Australia that's either a legal, where their declaration is eligible or accepted. So I had to go to the Australian High Commission. And so I had to drive to Auckland, get it witnessed. She actually said to me, you do realise this is going to cost you money, so I just want to make sure that you've tried everything else before you pay this fee. And I signed it. I said, absolutely, I do know that, and I've done everything else to try and avoid coming here 4 hours away to pay a fee for you to sign this paper. I absolutely know what I'm doing here. And she got really sorry for me, because she realised it wasn't my fault. I was in another country and had to go take all these turns to get things done. And then got it done, got back to Taupo that day, and the next day New Zealand went into lockdown level 4. So I was really relieved that I just managed to do that. I mean, even if I was in New South Wales at that point in time, I wouldn't have been able to go to Service New South Wales, because I couldn't leave my LGA.
That's right.
So, those sorts of hurdles kept coming up, and I was exhausted, I have to say, emotionally exhausted. I was back home caring for my dying mother, and I had to do this. So yeah, it was a tough journey.
But you can see there how without that professional assistance to kind of guide you through the way, any one of those things could have been a hiccup to your application, and subsequently a refusal. But with all of that, what was the end result, and how long did it take altogether?
Well, I got a phone call from Irina in October last year, and she had always said to me, if your application is accepted, the next step will be that immigration will ask for the remaining balance of the application fee, which basically says they're granting you your visa. And that phone call came through, and I at first I didn't realize it was her calling me, and I was in a meeting with my boss, and I was like, I don't know who this person is. And then I realized it was her, and I thought, she's rung me a couple of times, this has got to be important, and emailed me. So when she called and told me that they wanted my money, I was like, I'll give it to you right now. I was elated, absolutely elated. And she told me that I was actually, you guys have a list of all the applications and you kind of mark them off at certain milestone points, and ours had reached the 16-month mark. And we were at the top of your list, so the timing of it being granted was just on time, and that was absolutely amazing. And that also showed me that you do keep track of every application from end to end. And I think that's what was important to me, was that I felt like my hand was being held the whole entire way. As you say, all the hurdles that we came to, Irina was there to help me, and I felt like I was your only client, to be honest, because of the attention to detail that you, the attention to detail in every aspect was just really amazing. I've never received such care from a service, and I just knew I was in good hands.
Yeah. So how was that phone call to the partner in Samoa? How did that go? I can imagine how many months.
I can't even remember. It's almost like, the day you get married, it's kind of a blur. The day is a blur. But I do know that I cried, but I was pretty calm about it too, I think. And then he couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe what I was saying. And we just continued. Yeah, we just couldn't. We had no words. Yeah. It was a very overwhelming moment. And then it was wonderful that I was actually back home, because I got to tell my parents next, in person and stuff. And they were so excited. They couldn't wait to have the opportunity to meet Moana and everything like that. So this was just amazing for them as well. It was truly, they were just so happy for us. And then the next day, the new New South Wales Premier announced that he would be opening the borders on 1 November. And suddenly all these flights became available. And so we were able to book his flight from Samoa to Auckland to Sydney. I was able to book my flight from Auckland to Sydney. We managed to get on the same flight together. And that was exciting in itself. And my thought was we wouldn't be able to see each other till we got on the plane, and he was sitting in his seat or I was sitting in my seat. But we were on the phone as I got past customs and quarantine at the airport. And he said, "Hang on, where are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking through the airport now." And I looked around, and it's at Auckland, there's the big sort of food court type area where the shops are, and there's all this seating. And I looked around and I knew that they were Samoans, and I was like, why am I seeing them? Because they should be in the transit lounge.
Yeah.
And then, I couldn't believe it. So, and I turned around and I knew what shirt he was going to be wearing. And I could spot it from afar. And so I flicked to Facebook because I knew that my friends wanted to see us reunite. And it was a really special moment. That was the most amazing moment. So instead of me sitting there for 4 hours by myself, we got to sit there together for 4 hours and get acquainted with each other again. It was just truly beautiful. It was so beautiful that I didn't realise I paid almost $20 for a ham and cheese toasted sandwich. And I was willing to pay for everyone's breakfast that morning. Because Macca's wasn't open, just one cafe, and they weren't taking cash. I was just like, what do you like? That's how excited I was.
And just at the finish line, so we get the visas granted, but when you're not in the country, so if you get a permanent visa and you're granted, you're overseas and your visa's granted, you've got a time limit, haven't you, Ruth?
Yes.
You were fine, but we were worried about the border closures and all of this kind of carry on. So Moana only had, I think at that time, 3 months, and he had to get physically into Australia. Otherwise, his permanent visa would be wiped.
Yes.
And like your refusal. So it was non-stop. I felt for you and how you held yourself. And, it wasn't easy, Ruth? There were some real down moments where it was so hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, because it just seemed like everything was getting thrown, like any hurdle that could get thrown in the path for you. And I so felt for you. And you had on top of that having to go home to your whānau, take care of mum, drive that 4-hour drive from Taupo to Auckland just to sign a piece of paper because someone made a mistake here in Australia. But, I really, I just have so much respect for you that you trusted what I was saying to you to get through. And if any point, if I could have done it for you, I would have. But it was just some things I needed you to do, and you did. So it was a massive effort, massive.
Yes, on both our parts. I mean, there were just things that I just wouldn't have known to do, and I would have seen a lot of those hurdles, if not all of them, as the end of our journey. And the worst thing is that we didn't know when this pandemic was going to end, and if there was going to be an end in sight. And so, that your heart was my heart was breaking every day.
Yeah.
Because it was really tough. And this is a person that I needed to physically support me with my mum, and he wasn't there, and he wasn't able to be there. And that was through no one's fault. But it just made things a lot more tough as well. So it was a hard journey with a lot of complications, and I just thank you for helping me through that. I mean, my mum never got to meet Moana because she passed away on his birthday, this year. But at least he was here with me for that moment, and it's all thanks to you and your team. Excuse me, sorry.
No.
I'm sorry to hear about your mum, Ruth, and you sharing your story is going to bring a lot of people encouragement who think, they might not be able to get through it. They might not, there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but you sharing your story is going to show people that if they get the right assistance, that they can work, we can help them to work through their cases as well. But the fact that that the government puts people through these sorts of hurdles just to be together with your loved one it's the reality that we're working through at the moment. It's the framework that we're stuck with. But Edina makes things so much easier. We are here, as migration agents to make things a little bit easier for you all. If there's one thing that you can recommend to others about using Moringa Migration, what would be that last comment that you'd like to just share with everybody? And we might just end on that note.
I think a lot of hesitation in engaging a migration agent is the cost. You've got the cost of the application itself, and of course, when just for an individual, it's $4,000 or so, and then you tack on a partner or children, and the fee goes up and up and up, and then you add on an agent's fee on top of that. It becomes daunting. So. And it's hard to see the value in spending that money. But I think at the end of the day, the question that you need to ask yourself is, what's my motivation for getting permanent residency? What's at the core of this decision? And I can tell you that no amount of money was going to keep us apart. And no amount of effort and hurdle and obstacle was going to make it, stop us from being together. And so I feel like that was the motivation for engaging your services. We didn't want to fail, we wanted to get it right, and we knew that our situation wasn't exactly easy, and we had no idea what we were doing. I didn't know where to start. I mean, the fact that I thought I had to go back to New Zealand was, yeah, I felt like an idiot thinking that, in a sense, because I just didn't realize the options that were available to me. And I don't feel like immigration clarifies that for you, or makes it easy for you to work that out. So I just feel like that's the question you need to ask yourself. What's your motivation for doing this, and how important is it to you? I feel like it's the best money I ever spent. I can't put a price on us now being together. I mean, we arrived here in November last year. We got to spend Christmas together, and we just got married last month.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
was
congratulations.
amazing. Thank you. You know, 2 years later, but it happened, and we're no longer in that state of limbo, which felt like forever for us. And we just moved into a house together this week, you know, our own home to set up and call our own and start our lives together. And that was the whole point of it all. Yes. And I could never look back on that and think it was a waste of money. It was worth every penny. And yes, there's a lot of work that you as an individual has to do, completing the forms and all of that. But I'm sure there's a lot of agents out there that will help you somewhat, but not hold your hand throughout the whole journey. But that is what Mourning and Migration did for me. And as I said, I felt like I was your only client, because that's how much attention you paid to me and my situation. And you also gave me that motivation to keep going as well. You know, there were times where I wanted to give up or thought it's time to give up. But, you know, Elena was always there in the background working for us. The fact that she was trying to find exhausting every avenue possible for us to make this happen. It's the effort that she put in to help us get to where we are that made me want to do the things she told me to do. It's like, otherwise I wouldn't have known. So I thought, well, you can only try, and if you don't give it a go, or if you don't do this task, you don't know if that would have changed the whole you know, situation for us. So I know it did take a lot of trust, but I could tell that how empathetic you were to our situation, and you put yourself in our shoes, and I could feel that. And I think that might be the difference between choosing you and someone else, is that you actually make us feel that our situation matters. And it's your care for people that shines through. And so I always talk about you, and especially when people ask us how he got here. I mean, a lot of people saw him on Facebook at his brother's house, and were like, how did he get here? And during a pandemic. Exactly. It was like, it was the best time to do it. There was nothing else we could do, so why not file the papers? I mean, pretty much 16 months went by under lockdown. So if I had and you know what, if I had left it till now, as we come out of the pandemic, or come out of, you know, borders open, he'd still be in Samoa right now. Yes. So I was also amazed that immigration was still accepting applications, and I'm pleased that we lodged when we did, because it was we wouldn't be here right now where we are today if we didn't start that process.
And one more thing I want to add, last year I went to Sydney and we did information sessions there, and then we went to some I forget what it was.
Yeah, charity dinner or something.
Yeah. Whereabouts was that?
Parramatta.
Yeah. And whilst I was there, I was going up to get a kai, go and get a feed, and then I get this tap on my shoulder, and it's like, oh.
You went past me with your plate, and I was like, so I stood back and let you pass, and then I realised it was you, and I called out your name, and I said, it's Ruth Barlow, and that was the first time we had met in person. And it was wonderful. It was really, really wonderful to be able to meet even in person and everything. And again, that gave me motivation to keep going.
Yeah, that was such a cool thing. We had some lovely photos and
Yes.
yeah, from that night. It was a cool night. It was a really cool night.
Yeah, it was.
Oh
I wanna
man, thank you, Ruth. Like, I know that. Thank you for your tautoko and your support for myself and Moringa migration. I think I mean that's so valuable, and not from a business perspective. Like thing I hate is I have a personal hate for hiring professionals to do a job for you and they treat you like you're a number. We kind of talked about this last week. It's that, you know, oh, I was, oh no, I won't talk about it today, but I was just trying to think of another analogy. But the thing is, it's so important that if you're going to entrust your life, particularly immigration, it's high stakes. It is high stakes. You're not just going out there to buy a piece of furniture or a car or even a house. Like, it is high stakes. It's the difference between whether you can live in a country. It's the difference between whether you can have your loved ones live with you in that country. But getting the right support from a trusted professional, whether it's Moringa Migration or someone else, like that's the big thing. And I know Kathleen and I are on the same page with this. This is why I've really enjoyed having her join, because it's really hard to find people who've got that same kind of set of values and heart. That's what's important. And yeah, it does cost money. And people go, oh, why does it cost so much? But they don't realise that there's so much work and you've got to be ready for those hurdles. And in your case, there was no way we could foresee all of the hurdles that were going to come our way. And I remember even the police checks for Moana in Samoa was a nightmare. We're trying to get the name variation. It just went on and on, didn't it? It was one thing after the other. What we've touched on is just a part of what actually happened. But through those experiences, I know I learned a lot professionally. And when you get started, you want to make sure you see it through to the end. And sometimes I know lots of people used to say to me, particularly in my early days when I was a migration agent, but what if it doesn't get granted? What if the department reject it? For starters, we don't want to be lodging applications if we think they're going to get rejected. And if we lodge applications that might be at risk, we want to be prepared for those risks as early as possible. And sometimes the risk doesn't appear until you're actually already on that journey, like happened with you. And we need to be ready to react and be proactive and respond as soon as possible and give that advice. And that's what's really important, Ruth, because you would have got the visa, but Moana wouldn't have. That was the risk. You would have, and you would have still been in a position of, okay, you're a permanent resident. He's been somehow knocked back because the registered relationship or whatever happened. But then you would have been in a position, you could have sponsored him on a partner visa, but that could have taken another couple of years. And an enormous cost on top of what you've already spent, because that's a whole new process. It's a bigger process. It's more expensive. So we're really trying to mitigate any of those risks, not just so that we could get them in here, but so that you wouldn't have to face any more enormous mountains to overcome. And I know you would have done it. It would have been exhausting, but yeah, we really wanted to. But I think any professional, so long as they're good at what they do, they know what they're doing, they really do care about you. I think that's really important.
And it is a very intrusive and invasive process. I mean, they're digging into your whole life from the time you were born till now, and everything you do in between, and so many police checks. I mean, Moana got to the point where he was like, you know who I am because I've been here 9 times already, right? Well, they're asking for it once again.
Moana there?
Police check after police check.
Oh, it is. How you going, Moana?
Talofa.
Oh.
Sorry, he's just woken up from a morning. But yeah, it's such an intrusive and invasive process that it's your life. It's you're holding our lives in your hands as well, as much as we are. And so to your point, we it would be awful if we felt like we were just a number. And I felt that going to New South Wales, New South Wales, it was just boom, 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 paper, sign this, sign that, and then out the door. Thank you for spending $200 and whatever with me. You know, it's just, it was very much a wham bam, thank you man kind of experience. But you know, you took the time to read through all of our paperwork and make sure that we dotted every I and crossed every T. And that's the difference between someone caring for you and someone who isn't, because clearly those two experiences showed me two very different things. And yeah, so it is, I value the advice from a professional to help me through and navigate through a process which I had no idea about. And it just gave me that confidence that our application was absolutely sufficient, and well, more than sufficient. And yeah, I don't know what more else to say. I'm just absolutely thrilled. I mean, we got the result that we wanted.
Yeah.
And more.
Yeah. Amazing.
The story is so heartwarming, Ruth. I've got tears in my eyes still, because I can just imagine, you know, the challenge of being away from Moana that whole time, dealing with everything else, trying to get through everyday life, and then having to deal with all of these challenges on top of everything else. But it just goes to the strength of your character, and just this is what you do for your loved ones when you want them with you. You will go to no end just to have them in the same country and right beside you. And we just wish you two all the best. And congratulations on getting married. It's just such a beautiful ending to your journey and your story. But it's not the end. You're still on the way to citizenship. Don't forget about that. Yes. I'm sure we'll hear from you two again. But,
probably, because I set up my IMI account and I have no idea what it is. Like it's the most archaic system, I feel.
Oh yes.
I don't know. I thought I would be able to search for my visa number and it would pop up. And it doesn't do that. So I don't even know what it is about, to be honest. So I might have to come back to you and ask you for some advice on that one.
Until you're a citizen, your immigration journey has not ended.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just wish you all the best, and thank you so much for joining us. I am sure people are going to just relate to this story so much on so many levels. And yeah, thank you again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much for your time and for allowing me to share our story with you.
Thank you. It's just been amazing to hear it. I you know, we've always had that sporadic contact, and to hear it all in one place, one time has been incredible. Thank you so much for giving up your time this morning. We won't hold you up any longer. Just in our private chat, can you send me your new address, because I'll need that just update in the system, and then we can have a chat about in the account and stuff like that. But your home address and your postal address. But yeah, look, all of our love and you know, regards to you and Moana, and our sincerest condolences about Mum, you know, and to your family. So look, take care, and we'll keep in contact anyway, regardless.
Oh yes, you know, I sent you photos when we were at the airport. The video of our wedding.
Yeah, oh yes, I know. Even Glenda, she's seen it, one of our staff, she's seen the video that, because I didn't know, and we sent the video, and I was in tears. Glenda watched it, she was in tears, and yeah, no, it was a beautiful wedding, a beautiful, beautiful wedding. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new home.
Yes, thank you.
All happening.
And your new surname. And your new surname.
Oh yes, I do need to do that. We've just got a list of things to work through, and that is on there at some point down the line.
Beautiful. Well, take care, Ruth, and we'll keep in contact.
You too.
And thank you once again.
And I just wish you all the best and continued success. And yeah, I'll always support your business no matter what.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It means everything. Take care. Bye
All
for
right.
now.
Bye. Bye.
All right, so we're just about to wrap up. Oh my goodness, we did go over time. But for
Just a
people
little
that
bit over time.
we thought we were going to be on time. So we're just going to wrap up, and because we were so organised, I've shared our screen again. We just wanted to finish off. I think we've got, where is it? Where is, oh, somehow it's skipping the slide. This was the slide we wanted to finish off with today. For people out there that might have joined us in our live or going to join us at a later time, if you're wanting to know more information about what we do, our services, if you had time to listen to Ruth's amazing journey and experience, there's a few starting points. So people often are stuck on, how do I get started? I want some guidance, I want some help. We offer a couple of, we've got a free 10-minute call service, and that's how Ruth first started with me. I used to do it for 15 minutes, but we just do it for 10 minutes now. So Kathleen will call you if you want to book in a 10-minute callback session. You can. There's a calendar on our website, and Ruth will give you a call to have a chat about your situation. She can't give full advice, but what she can do is give you some kind of idea of what we might be able to do for you in that short amount of time. That's a free service that we provide. It's on our website, morningonmigration.com.au. We've also got a section on our website called Frequently Asked Questions. We've gone through and we've tried to answer as many of the common questions as we can think of on there. Even on our Facebook pages, there's a section there. If you go to the messaging, the messenger on the Propriety Limited Morning Migration page, there's a whole lot of frequently asked questions there as well. You can follow us on Facebook. You can visit our website. Our information is designed really around New Zealand citizens, New Zealand passport holders, but some of that information might be helpful to other migrants as well. But that's our focus, as I explained at the beginning. And our paid service is we do offer a consultation. So this is for people who really just want to cut to the chase, or they don't want to muck around, or they're ready to get started right now. Now, there is a fee of $660 that includes GST for our time to go through and provide you with advice. So consultations generally last between 45 minutes to an hour, and we do it through Zoom, we do it through a video call usually. Kathleen's based in the Blacktown area of Sydney. She's more than happy to do home visits at the moment. We haven't got an office set up in Sydney yet where people can come to, but she's even had a couple of people visit her at her home.
Yeah,
but she's
more than happy
to visit people who are kind of within half an hour, I suppose, radius of where you live in Prospect. So,
Yeah.
and there's no extra charge for that. So if you're in the Sydney area and you would like a face-to-face consultation, Kathleen also speaks Tongan, fluent Tongan. So for our Tongan families out there that are wanting support, and particularly for our Tongan people who have got New Zealand citizenship, like this would be a great combination. You've got someone who knows about the New Zealand stuff plus speaks Tongan, which I think is an amazing asset that Kathleen brings to what we're able to offer. So that's fantastic. So there's that. Otherwise, we do our consultations via Zoom. We'll go through your situation. We can't always find pathways to help people. Most times we can, sometimes we can't. And if we can't, what we can say to you is that we will provide advice around what you can do, what options you have at the moment to change that for yourself in the future, so that one day you will have a pathway to permanent residency, for example. So there's lots involved, as you can see. We'll continue on with our series next week, part 2 of the citizenship application process, and we'll continue on with that citizenship. Probably it'll take us a good 4 to 6 weeks to get through all of that basic information, and then we'll no doubt think of a new topic to put in there.
I was going to say, and also a big shout out to those of our clients who received citizenship in the past and are voting for the first time.
Yes. know.
Congratulations to them, and I hope you enjoy that first time, that process. Your vote is now going to count. Hopefully things will change in the immigration space for the better under a new government or whoever is coming in.
Absolutely. And 2 of my adult sons gained citizenship this year, so they will be voting tomorrow. And they've all got Australian partners, wives. We've got so many Australian citizen family members, and we're all on the same page when it comes to politics, because we really want to look for people who are going to represent our little cohort and the unique and very vulnerable situation that we as New Zealand citizens find ourselves in, and how those, how fair and practical pathways to help more people, not just those that meet the limited criteria for certain visas. But anyway, look, what an amazing day it's been. Thank you to everyone out there. If you've joined us today, thank you for joining us. If we've missed your question somewhere along the lines, we will try and follow them up. We'll put links into the thread, and we normally pick up on it the following week if we haven't covered it today. But yeah, look, wishing everyone a lovely weekend and happy voting to all the Australian citizens out there. And for those that are permanent residents, right now, you hopefully will be in a position to vote next round, so in 3 years' time.
Yeah, and those of our clients who've got citizenship applications in the pipeline as well, hopefully the next time the election comes around, they'll be able to vote.
Yeah, all right. See you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.